Season 1 of Written in Stone, the 1990s, is supported by Tension Climbing, wooden training tools designed with purpose in Denver, Colorado. Use the code STONE, that's STONE, to get 10% off of your next purchase at tensionclimbing.com and to let them know that their support for this show matters. Not valid for tension board sets, hardware, or gift cards. Cannot be combined with other offers. Tensionclimbing.com. Mastery over success.
Structure audio.
1987, Camelback Mountain, Arizona. The Central Arizona Bouldering Contest has changed their name to the Phoenix Bouldering Contest, and for the first time has attracted some big names. As everyone expected, Ron Kalk wins for the men. How could he not? But at the top of the women's list is a name that won't leave that top spot for some time. 13 years in total, actually. Bobbi Bensman. But that's just one competition. And if you look at indoor competition results from that moment forward, it's the same story. North American Open, Snowbird, Utah, August 1989. Winners, Jim Karn and Bobbi Bensman. Seattle Open, October 1989. Jim Karn and Bobbi Bensman. Seattle Rockmaster 1990. Jim Karn and Bobbi Bensman. United States Championship 1990. Dale Goddard, Bobbi Bensman. ASCF National Championship 1991, Hans Florine and Bobbi Bensman. Snowbird Sport Climbing Championship 91, Kurt Smith and Bobbi Bensman. ASCF National Championship 1994, Scott Franklin and Bobbi Bensman. Dozens more like this, all wins. And if we looked at podiums in general, we'd be here all day. And if you've ever seen the cover of Climbing Magazine from November of 1996, you understand why. It's a black and white image because no color was required to convey the raw strength and pure power, her shoulders looking like an anatomy lesson and her head thrown back, eyes closed, mouth open, in a scream that can only come from a moment of absolute effort. And of course, because while her accomplishments can speak for themselves, Bobbi, lucky for all of us, just isn't one to keep her mouth shut. Bobbi, welcome to Written in Stone.
Wow, thanks for having me. God, you did your history. That's insane.
I love it. I love it. I've known a lot of that for a long time because I've devoured the magazines and the history and the goings-ons, since way before I met you. But I was actually thinking about you not too long ago, right around Christmas time, because I went through my sock drawer and I realized that I had darn tough socks that Kurt Smith gave me like 15 years ago in the New River Gorge. And they're all still in great shape. And I had smart wool socks that I'd gotten in the last couple years that already had holes in them. So I actually threw out all of the other brands except for Darn Tough, and I ordered 10 or 12 pairs of Darn Tough. They've got that lifetime guarantee, so I never have to think about socks again unless they just look cool, and then I'm buying Darn Tough. And I thought you would appreciate that since you're the number one Darn Tough sales rep.
Oh my God, that's awesome. So yeah, when we see each other, I'll give you a little care package.
Oh, I would love that. And I would actually just love to see you again soon. It's been a while.
Well, I'm going to come to Lander for the festival.
All right. Yeah, we'll be here for sure.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Awesome. Before we fully jump into this, I have two questions for you. One related to the topic, the other totally not related. So first, do you remember the first time we met? It was a very brief meeting, but I remember it crystal clear.
Well, okay. Well, I definitely shared a cabin with you for the 24 hours
before
of the
that.
horseshoe. Okay, so, all right. You're going to have to tell me.
It was at OR, and I was at, I think, the Rock and Ice booth, and I had just done this wrap for the folks at the booth that uses your name and a bunch of other climbers' names to tell us a kidnapping story. And you were walking by, and I think Jeff Jackson was like, "Bobbi, come here. You have to hear this." And he made me do it again for you.
Oh
And that
my
was the
God,
first time we ever met.
that's so funny. I remember that. That's awesome. Do you still have that rap?
I have an a cappella version of it, and I think I'm actually going to give it to the patrons of this podcast after this episode, just because it's got so many cool historical names.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay, next. Like you said, we shared a cabin at Horseshoe Hill, and I know firsthand that you are a fierce competitor. And I mean both fierce and competitor in the full sense of both words, not just a competition climber, but you're a fierce and competitive human. But nobody becomes that fierce without a rival of some sort. And Lynn had Catherine Destavel and Gilbert Tribou, and then Isabelle Petissier. So who were your rivals? Women, men, indoor competitions, or whatever?
Oh my God, Alison Osius.
Mm.
Alio.
I just watched Painted Spider yesterday because I remembered that you and Allison had a super final in Painted Spider. I think that was 91 in California, in Berkeley, at a national championship, and you win the super final. That was one of the first moments that I was like, wow, this woman is badass.
So yeah, Alio, she and I, like, we went neck to neck for years, but we had an
Yeah.
absolutely intense competitive relationship, but we loved each other. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I would like win maybe 3 times in a row. And then I'd get a box of chocolate in the mail from Alio. Like she just wanted me to get fat so she could beat me on the next one. Like just hilarious. So, we would definitely go back and forth. I'd win, then she'd win. But we trained a lot together too, which was
Mm.
really cool.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. That's one of the things I appreciated about that segment in Painted Spider was that after you win, there's an interview with the two of you standing there talking back and forth, and you can really see the friendship, And when it's clear that you've won, the camera switches to Allison, and she's smiling and happy about it. And I love seeing that.
Just such an amazing relationship. And we did it for 21 years.
Wow, that's
So
incredible.
yeah, it was a long we did a lot of competitions together and a lot of training together. But yeah, I'd say Alio was definitely my biggest competitor.
What was competing like in those early days, like the late '80s, early '90s? Let's talk a little about what that scene was like.
Um, it was stressful. It was intense. Like, we were
Mm,
all just coming onto it. Most of us, well, we all had outdoor climbing as our own, we didn't have indoor gyms then. So,
right.
I mean, I think I'd been climbing for 10 years before the very first climbing gym came into fruition, which was Cats in Boulder, and then the Front in Salt Lake City. And I'd always go between
Mhm.
Salt Lake and Boulder. Um, so, it was hard to train for them at the very beginning. In fact, the
Yeah,
Phoenix Bouldering Contest, 13 years in a row of outdoor bouldering. So that
yeah.
competition was always outside. Um, but I think that the competition scene was really good. It was really competitive. The route setters were amazing. Jeff Lowe, Jim Waugh, all the people that put
Mhm.
these things together. I mean, just huge respect because now look where we are in 2024. It's come a long way. We're in the Olympics. Jesus.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, totally incredible.
Were all of the other women and competitors as supportive as Allison was? Or were there some, like, we're at each other's throats a little bit?
Um, I'm looking at the list because you gave me like some of the women that, you know, it wasn't, no, we weren't really at each other's throats. I mean, I remember Shelly and I also competed a lot together. Shelly
Mhm.
Presson, now Dunbar. I
Mhm.
remember a really gnarly experience at Hunter Mountain. It was a national climbing competition at the ski area in New York. And we were all in isolation, and Shelly went out first. And back then, we could hear what was going on. You could tell how people were doing the
Right,
audience.
right.
You could hear the competitor. I remember Shelly went out and I was next in line. I was tied into the rope, the whole bit. And she took a horrendous fall. Like, I think
Mm.
she went upside down. She was screaming, crying, like, lower me, lower me. Oh my God. And Shelly and I were so close, and I love her so deeply that, my God, I was so rattled when I came out. I can't even remember if I made the finals. It was just. So there
Wow.
was definitely a lot of love between all of us. We all wanted to do our very best, but we were always really supportive. And Shelly and I, Alio, Robin, Lynn, we all competed in World Cups together and national climbing competitions as well.
Yeah.
Robin and I actually had a funny thing at Snowbird. She had won her first World Cup. It was Leeds in the UK.
Mm. Yeah.
And Christian Griffith and Antoine Leministrel route set for a competition on the side of the Snowbird Wall, and it was a national climbing competition. I think everybody had to go to it to make the U.S. climbing team.
Got it.
And Robin had just come fresh win off Leeds World Cup. Anyway, somehow when it was my turn to go, I won. I got the highest of everybody. And I just remember, like, oh my God. And then that was the last time that ever happened. It was totally a fluke. But I just remember, oh my God, I beat Robin. And I mean, I'm friends and climb with Robin to this day, and she's definitely in a whole nother league. But that was my one little claim to fame.
Oh, I think there were a lot more claims to fame than that, but that is a special story, like Robin and Lynn were definitely the 2 Americans who seemed like they were on, like there were you and Allison and Shelly and Mia
Oh,
who were
yeah.
on this level higher than everyone else, but then there was this other level that seemed like Lynn and Robin had somehow reached that we didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
What was Lynn like in competition? Because, knowing Lynn outside of that, she's kinda fun and silly, and, Katie Brown and I talked about Lynn earlier this season, and I think we described her as goofy, and what was she like in competition?
Well, you've seen Lynn, right? You've seen her
Yeah.
eyes. They are
Yeah.
fierce, right? Those
Yeah, very
just
focused.
those blue eyes. She gets those from her mom. Her mom even
Mm.
has more intense eyes than she does. So
Wow.
those eyes, right? They're just piercing. And in competition, so we did a lot of. I mean, I'd come over to Europe and do a lot of World Cups. Lynn was living. She bought a really cool old place in the south of France, so she was
Yep.
living in Europe, and a lot of us from the U.S. would travel overseas for the competitions. So yeah, in isolation, Lynn was really fun. She would hug everybody, but very focused, like you
Mm.
know, her way or the highway kind of thing. Like and she, when it comes to climbing, she's like that to this day. I mean, yeah, outside
Yeah.
of climbing, yeah, she might be funny and goofy and crack us all up and be obnoxious like Lenny can be. But oh my God, in competitions and when she's ready to climb, like, pull that rope to, I want to belay now, so she's definitely intense, and she's a Capricorn.
Yeah.
She just had her birthday. So yeah, you don't want to mess with that astrological side. Believe me.
That's interesting. The first time I ever climbed near Lynn was in the New River Gorge, and it was kind of when I first started like getting popular for the rapping about climbing that I was doing, and I was there at the New River Gorge to perform, and I'm sitting at the crag. I'm putting my shoes on, and up walks Russ Clune and Lynn Hill, and I'm starstruck, And but they know who I am because they've heard the songs recently, and they're like, "Are you O-Dub?" And I'm like, "What world am I living in that that these people know my name, and watching her, the difference between her and Russ, when it was time to pull onto the wall was pretty marked. Like Russ continued the fun and silliness, and Lynn immediately when she stepped on the wall was in the zone. It was remarkable to watch.
Yeah. And she's still like that today. The same.
Was there a moment back then when you realized that Lynn was kind of on this other level, that she had found this other place?
Yeah, that probably happened in 1980, 1981, if you can believe it.
Mm,
We're going back.
way back. Yeah.
And I was a young climber in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And in 1980, there weren't that many women climbing hard at all. But I kept hearing
Right.
about this woman in Los Angeles that was climbing 512. And I mean, we didn't even have hardly any 512s at that time. And I just,
Yeah.
and then the craziest thing about it was that she's 5'1", right?
Right,
And
right.
here I am at 5'3", 5'4" back then.
Yeah.
Like,
You're
oh my
tall.
God, I'm like, I gotta shut up. People are like, oh my God, that root and Joshua tree, Lynn Hill did that. And I'm like, oh my
Mm.
God, yeah, that was the first time we really kind of had to stop using the reach card, right?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. She's broken, like, so many paradigms that we all used as excuses, until someone says, "Well, Lynn Hill onside this." You know?
Oh my God. I mean, you know about the thing she just did late last year
Yeah, with
on the
Sasha.
maiden. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
she did it in a day, 13 plus, three
yeah,
pitches, two pitches of hard 513. And she went and freed all the pitches one at a time and then went back and, as in the nose style, sent it from the ground. I mean, we're talking, a couple months ago. She's still on fire.
yeah. Yeah, incredible. Uh, Jibe Tribu famously said that no woman would onsite 13B or send 14A. And then Lynn famously did both right in his face. And in 1996, you did Kurt Smith's Slice of Life in Rifle, which had stood at 14A since 1992 when Kurt first did it. And someone suggested a downgrade immediately after you did it. And when I was thinking about that and when I was preparing for this episode and this season in general, it occurred to me that that sort of seemed like these men in Rifle trying to keep Tribu's prophecy true.
Yeah, I mean, it was one person, but let me just tell you,
Mm.
that was, years before that, I experienced that with John Sherman in
Oh,
Waco.
with Better Eat Your Wheaties.
Oh yeah, said no woman would ever climb B9, and when I did it, it got downrated that night. It went all the way through the Waco campgrounds, and yeah, he downrated. So I've always had this happen. So when it happened and this happened years before Slice of Life.
Yeah.
So, when that happened, it was kind of like, really again,
Yeah.
you know, but, it did get downrated and to 13D,
Mhm.
and then no one did it. It went completely cobwebbed for years. Some people would try it here and there, and they were like, if I'm going to climb a 13D, I'd like to do like a 13D. This thing is way nails.
Yeah.
So people would never do it.
Yeah.
And about a year ago, they actually uprated it back to 14A, and it's been gang banged all last year.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, and it had nothing to do with holds breaking or anything. It's just that, you know, it's really a 14A, and it always has been. And Better Eat Your Wheaties, V9, ask anybody.
Definitely.
So I just think that it got uprated, and there's a guy that climbs pretty strong. He's a doctor here in the Denver area, and he came up to me and said to me, "Hey, did you hear that Slice got uprated?" And I said, "No, I hadn't heard because it had just happened." And he was like, "Yeah, it's about time because for years no one would do it because if it was so hard for 13D that if somebody wanted to do a 13D, they'd pick a proper 13D. This thing was like a hard 14A." So, anyway, they uprated, and now people are psyched
Yeah,
because it's like, "Oh, we got another 14A in the Wicked Cave."
that's cool.
So, yeah, that's
Did it feel validating to you that it got upgraded, or at that point did it even matter?
it kinda didn't really matter because, being a woman, starting out climbing in the '80s, I mean, this kind of shit happened all the time.
Yeah,
I mean, it still happens.
yeah.
Women will do I mean, Katie Brown stuff. I mean, we've all had our shit downrated.
Sure, sure.
So it was kinda nice to know that, for me, I was just happy to know people were doing the route again.
Mhm.
Because I climb and rifle all the last few years, and no one was ever on that route. And isn't that weird that once it got uprated, that it became popular?
It's definitely, whether we want it to be or not, there's definitely a number chasing component to all of us. Like, I wanna climb a harder grade, of course I do.
Right,
But then when you get on something that feels like, "Oh, I'm putting in effort at a level that's far greater than the number I get for it," uh, it definitely starts to mess with your head, and you wanna find something that doesn't require quite as much effort, and you still get the same number.
right. Yeah, that's
Even those of us who wanna continuously challenge ourselves and try not to pay attention to the grade, I think we get trapped in that.
yeah, we definitely do. I mean, I think it's normal.
Why do you think it was that men were so insistent that women couldn't do these things? I mean, we had already seen that women were continuing to improve and continuing to climb harder and harder things and climb things that men already thought they couldn't do. So, what do you think it is about that male ego that wants to put a cap on what other people can do?
I don't know. I'm going to definitely say there are some key male climbers out there that
Mm,
act in this way. Majority of them don't. Like all the
yeah.
podiums that I shared with the men that you brought up and all the and the national championships, like the
Yep.
Kurt Smiths, the Scott Franklins, the Jim Carnes, that I would be
Yeah.
first place, they'd be first place. Those were like not those guys. Those are guys that
Cool.
we would all climb together. They would see all the women around them trying hard. We all tried hard together.
Yeah.
But I just think there were a few key people, like Don Welsh, he's the one that downrated Slice. John Sherman,
Mm,
same thing. I don't know how those guys feel today, but I mean, I would assume that they know now that women will surpass men in this sport. We will be climbing harder than men. And I think women that are aging and older will climb harder than some of the aging and older male climbers out there as well. It's our sport now.
I love it.
I mean, climbing, 14D for women, I mean, that's insane. There's so many. There's so
Yeah.
many women we've never even heard of that are climbing that hard.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, the nose, when it was done in the mid 90s, was definitely this like catalyst moment of, this isn't Lynn just doing a first female ascent. This isn't her doing something that someone said no woman could ever do. This was her doing something that men thought might be impossible. And it was a long time before a man was able to repeat what she had done. Um, do you have any memories of first hearing that she had done it and then done it in a day? And what did you think of it when you heard it?
Well, so I've known Lynn since I was 16, right?
Yeah.
So over 40 years. And I've always followed her career. We've always been friends since the very beginning, the first time I ever met her in Joshua Tree. So I knew exactly what was going on. I mean, I knew who her belayers were. I knew who
Mm,
the camera people were behind it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I remember the whole thing. It's not I wasn't there, but I was there.
yeah. And I assume you were rooting for her from
Oh
afar.
my God. Like in awe, major awe. I mean, and not only just like her climbing, like you remember all those pictures of her? Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
Just like
Totally.
a bronze goddess. Like she did all those pictures in the sun. She
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
so tan and muscular and just Yeah, she was insane. Like, uh, next level for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, the most famous rock climber in the world for sure.
Yeah, no question. Do you think like, I've only known Lynn since way after the nose, so do you think it changed her at all? Was there anything about Lynn that changed when she suddenly, like, became this mega superstar that was on David Letterman and, doing all these things beyond any other climbers?
I mean, it definitely changed her. Like, I mean, it must have given her so much confidence
Mm,
to just like, and I think she really wanted other people to be able to repeat it too. But I love the slogan. It goes, boys.
yeah,
And that's such so awesome. And I definitely think that, she went on after the nose to just continue to climb hard and inspire all of us.
mhm.
And we'll never forget that ascent.
No way.
And it's Lenny style. She went up, she freed each pitch, made it to the summit, hiked down, and then I think it was the next year that she went and did it from the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, just totally inspiring. And kind of like, we never did that back then necessarily. Like that,
right.
doing it in that ground up like that, that was also a little bit on the newish side.
Yeah, she was definitely pushing the limits and the barriers in lots of different directions, and almost anyone else would have been satisfied with, "Oh, I just freed the nose," and they could have just rested on that, but for a year, she stewed over it and trained and was like, "I can do it in better style, I can do it faster, I can do this whole thing in a day, free." And she drastically undergraded the changing corners pitch. She called it 13B at the time, and now everyone considers it 14A. That's a total flip of no woman can climb 514. She's gonna call it 13B, and then later men are gonna say, "No way, this is 514 for sure."
Well, and then look at all the people she inspired after that to do ground up
Yeah,
free ascents of El Cap,
yeah,
right? I mean, she definitely was cutting edge.
yeah, that's incredible. You're still climbing, you're still crushing. You mentioned Lynn just doing, some 13 plus pitches on this thing on the maiden, but you've got a pretty impressive tally of 513s. How many have you done now?
260?
260. I'm trying to get to 100 this year.
Where are you at?
I'm at, like, 87 or 88 or something.
That's rad.
I really didn't start sport climbing until pretty late, and then I spent a lot of years bouldering in there, so I'm trying to shore up my sport climbing, but it definitely inspires me to look at your number continue to grow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I try to do a 513 every year,
Yeah.
and I've done one for 40 years every year, at least one, if not more. So, yeah. My work is pretty intense, so this year I didn't get as many 513s as I normally do, but I'm really hoping a lot for 2024.
Yeah. Well, when you come to Lander, are you gonna be here for a while?
Yeah, definitely. I
Okay.
wanna I wanna come for the festival, and then yeah, you're gonna take us to some of those new limestone areas.
Let's go do the 513s you haven't done while you're here. That'd be a lot of
Okay,
fun.
that's awesome.
I'm curious, Bobby, what's your relationship like these days with, like, Lynn and Robin? I know you said you and Allison are still close friends. What's that relationship like between all those women who were competing back in the day and, really setting the stage for women in competition today? Like we saw, there were the Anna Storr and Yanya Garnbrett nowadays and Jane Kim and all these women who have this storied history in competition. I think it was you and Allison and Lynn and Robin and Shelley who kind of set the stage for Katie Brown and then these other women. So,
Yeah,
what's
Beth
the
Rodden.
relationship with those women like? Yeah, Beth.
We're all tight. Like we're all good friends to this day, which is really cool.
Yeah. Do you climb with them in the gym at all? Do you get outside with them?
I definitely climb with Robin sometimes, Lynn also. Not too much with the others because we're all in different places.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shelley's in Hawaii or Australia. I don't know. But I mean, if we're all together, it's super fun. Like really great relationships still to this day.
Totally. I haven't been to OR in a couple of years, but if I could organize a photo of all of those women crushers from back in the day who were at OR to get together for a photo, I would go to OR just for that, even though I hate the hall walking social overload that happens every time I go.
Yeah, that would be fun. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's try
totally.
to do it.
Let's do it. Well, Bobbi, anytime I'm talking with climbers who lament getting older and having to hang up their hard climbing, I point to you and I point to Lynn, and you're an inspiration for letting us know that we can continue to do it and continue to crush things as we get older. So thank you for providing that motivation and inspiration for the last, 30 plus years. And thanks for taking the time to sit down and chat about the 90s. I appreciate it so much.
Oh, it was so fun to reconnect with you, and I can't wait to see you and bring you some darn tough socks
Oh, I can't wait.
and have you take me climbing.
Written in Stone is produced by me, Chris Hampton, with help from Riley Rush and Emily Holland for Plugtone Audio, a group of the best, most impactful podcasts in the outdoor industry. The link in your show notes, you'll find all the things you expect, and probably some you don't, including a photo of that climbing magazine cover on which Bobbi is trying harder than you've ever tried, and maybe even a way to hear the a cappella verse that I mentioned. And look, the show is 100% rooted in the facts, but like Todd Skinner always said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And if you love what you're hearing, give us those 5 stars and a glowing review, and tell everyone you know at the crag, at the gym, at those social functions where climbers can only talk about climbing, and together we can tell the stories of climbing's most important ascents, one decade at a time. What is up, Secret Stoners? It has been a crazy busy week over here. We've got a lot of cool things happening. But before we jump into those, I want to say first, big shout out to Matt, our newest Legend supporter. I appreciate you. And also to William, who is supporting. Man, it means a lot to me that people are willing to just give support, even though there's not a bunch of free things coming for them. However, I did just create, and I mean just like within the last hour, just create the Patron Secret Stoners Club podcast feed. That's where all of the bonus materials are going from now on, and there's already something over there for you. If you're listening to this episode, Bobbi and I talked in this episode about an a cappella rap that I did for her when we first met, and that I would try and get that out so that everyone could hear it, and that's where I put it, in the Patron podcast, the Secret Stoners Club podcast. You can get that on Patreon. You can also get it on Spotify. Just search Secret Stoners Club. It's in there. If you are a Legend supporter, you can go into my memberships. That's at the 3 little dots in your mobile, or it should be in your menu on desktop, and you'll get a link to an RSS feed there that is your private link, and you can paste that into pretty much any podcast app, and it will work. And there's more coming there. Lots more, actually. I promised you last week that there would be 4 episodes this week. I lied. Well, I didn't entirely lie. We did have 4 episodes originally, but Emily and I talked, and I have a big episode I'm working on, and it's taking me longer than I expected it would. So we're splitting this up. 2 episodes this week, 2 episodes next week, one of which will be in the patron feed. It will only have a short excerpt from it on the regular feed, and you'll see why when we get there. Next episode coming this week is one I found really interesting, and I really wanted to have a conversation with this person. She was a Yosemite local who was the first Black woman to climb El Capitan. And I think that's an example of representation that there's not enough of in the climbing world. So I really wanted to shine a spotlight on her for an episode. So that's coming in just a couple of days for you all. We also, like I said, lots of cool things coming this week. We also ordered some special things from Tension just for the Written in Stone fans, and we're going to be doing a big giveaway very soon. We'll have our own giveaway right here in the Secret Stoners Club as well. So stay tuned for those things coming soon. I'm being really vague. Am I always this vague in here? I don't even know. I actually tried to look back at notes earlier to see what I talked about the last time, but I don't really keep good notes on these. I'm just talking to you all. You know, thanks for listening. It's really fun doing a scripted show, but I look forward every Sunday to recording these Secret Stoners Clubs because I just get to talk to you all. All right, I'm going to stop talking now. I'm just rambling. So many cool things coming. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you Wednesday.